On Issues and Insiders today, we turn to the action on professional baseball and football fields here in Korea as fans flock to stadiums to root for their respective teams this season. Welcome to Friday's edition of Issues and Insiders. I'm Min Sunhee. Today we delve into the latest at baseball and football stadiums here in the country this season. For this, I have Yoo Jeeho live on the line. Yoo, it's been a while. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me today.
I also have Steve Han with us. Steve, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me on.
Right, Gio, pundits are projecting a tremendous surge, I believe, in spectators for this year's KBO. Let's begin with their projections and, of course, their broader implications.
Sure. Well, just a couple of days ago, the KBO attendance surpassed 1 million fan mark for the season. That was through 70 games already. That's actually the fastest, the quickest mark, the fewest number of games in which the KBO surpassed 1 million mark since the league expanded to 10 clubs back in 2015. The previous record was 90 games back in 2019. So we could already see how much ahead of the pace this season has been so far. And there have already been 26 sellouts compared to 7 sellouts at the same point last season. And, last year, overall, they had 8.1 million fans. And that's the third highest total in league history, dating back to 1982. And, coming out of the COVID seasons was really a successful year at the gates for all the 10 teams. But this year, they're well ahead of the pace. Some optimistic, predictions would have, close to 10 million fans for the season. Depending on how some of the popular teams do later in the season, depending on how the fans will kind of stick with them. I think, that's, kind of doable almost at this point. So really, great success as far as selling tickets in the KBO so far in the early going of the season.
Right, I see. And Steve, I also hear that K-League is also witnessing a remarkable boost in spectators at stadiums, following, of course, an impressive attendance sheet last season. Do tell us more.
Yeah, there's no doubt that this is a promising trend. Last year, the K-League 1 averaged over 10,000 fans per game for the first time since 2011. And those of you who followed Korean football long enough, you know what happened in 2011, the match-fixing scandal. The match-fixing scandal that not only jeopardized the viability of football in Korea for the next decade that came, but it was a scandal that literally took people's lives away. And when a professional sports league that's designed to entertain people creates headlines for those reasons, it's no surprise that until about 5 years ago, this league was averaging only 5,000 fans per game. So for somebody like me, who has been working in this game for the last 16 years, to see the wider public in Korea enjoy local football, not national team football, local football, the way they're enjoying it now, it's really beautiful to see. But I do think that we need to understand that at the same time, this isn't really anything new. I consider the 10 to 15 year span between 98 and 2012 as the golden age of Korean football. And from 98 to 2011, the K-League actually averaged over 10,000 fans per game every year for more than a decade. But at that time, were we celebrating the success of the K-League? No, we were still having the same discussion. How do we raise the popularity of local football in Korea? So I don't think many people understand that the challenge for the K-League has rarely been about putting butts in seats. It has always been about, yes, we have the capability to fill the stadiums when the games kick off, at least in the short term. But how do we get the rest of the 50 million South Korean population to care about football teams that represent their hometowns, as opposed to just finding 10,000 people to sit at the games? The challenge has always been about sustaining this energy and using it to take this sport to the mainstream. But the truth is that they're not there yet.
Right, I see. Meanwhile, Gio, back to baseball. As reported by the local media here, a lot of the pre-season chatter was dominated by the homecoming of Ryu Hyun-jin. What has his play been like thus far, Gio?
Yeah, so Ryu's return to the KBO and specifically to the Hanwha-Eagles, the team that drafted him back in 2005, generated a lot of buzz, even during spring training when he was throwing bullpen sessions, when he was throwing scrimmages against his own teammates. that drew a lot of eyeballs, a lot of clicks online in preseason as well. They sold out some of the preseason games, even in the games that didn't ultimately matter. He drew a lot of attention, a lot of eyeballs. But once the regular season began, Ryu really struggled out of the gate. First 3 starts, he had 2 losses, did not factor in a decision in the other game, and got really hit around quite a bit. But last night, in his 4th game, Ryu finally won a game. His first win since return to the KBO, his first victory since September 2012. And it was against the same team. The last team that he had defeated, Doosan Bears, last night, same opponent, held them to just 1 hit in 6 shutout innings as the Eagles won 3-0. And more importantly for the team, they were able to snap their 5-game losing streak. And it actually began with Ryu's loss last week against the Kiyomiros. So Ryu was really determined to end the streak that he began. He was telling his coaches earlier in the day about how he wanted to be the stopper, kind of the guy starting pitcher who goes out, gives the team a strong outing, gives them a chance to win and stop the losing streak. So he was able to do just that. And also he threw his season high 94 pitches and looked pretty good doing so. So I think all of these point to a pretty strong season for the rest of the way for Ryu.
Right, I see. Something to look forward to. Meanwhile, Steve, there's also been quite a bit of fanfare, that is, to mark the arrival of former Manchester United player Je시린가드 to FC Seoul. Now, I understand he's having a slow start, but beyond that, broadly speaking, of course, what do you believe are the implications of his presence here on the local football field?
Yeah, I think Je시ringad's arrival has opened the doors that have never really been open for Korean football. We've got prominent celebrity-like English football writers visiting Korea to cover the K-League. And, talk sports radio stations in England interviewing me about the K-League and not Son Heung-min for once. There are finally more eyes on the K-League now on a global scale, I think. But I say this again, what will the K-League do to maximize this opportunity? Because is simply getting more attention from the rest of the world enough for the K-League? Because they need to drive this conversation at the forefront and either try to leverage this situation from a business standpoint, or at least in terms of football, maybe develop a relationship with Lingard and his network to tap into more opportunities to collaborate with English football, because it's about time the K-League looks beyond just numbers.
Right, of course. Jeeho, meanwhile, back on baseball, who are some of the baseball players making headlines this season? Which teams, by the way, appear to be actively seeking to garner the title this season?
Right. So I just talked about Ryu. Obviously, he's going to be, drawing attention for the rest of the way. I also wanted to touch upon a couple of teammates on the SSG Landers. First, another former major leaguer himself, Choo Shin-soo. He's going to be turning 42 later this summer. This is his final season in professional baseball, and he's serving as captain of the club. And he's also playing for free this year. He's donating all of his salary to charities later after the season. He just came back from injury last night, and he wants to make it a memorable swan song in his career in professional baseball after more than a decade in the majors. Now, he's one of his teammates, Choi Jung. He's chasing an all-time home run record in the KBO. He's currently sitting at 463. Lee Seung-yup, the Lion King, they called him, currently the manager of the Doosan Bears, he's got the record with 467. So Choi Jung is 5 away from setting the record. It's just a matter of time, I think, at this point, for Choi Jung to become the home run king in Korean baseball. So something to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. Potentially, he could actually set the record sometime this month, if not early next month. So, he's been around since 2005, a very consistent player, really productive, well into his 30s, and he's going to have the record to himself pretty soon. Among other players, just to talk about the certain teams a little bit. The Kia Tigers in first place right now, despite a lot of injuries to some of the key players. And one of their new starting pitchers for this year, James Nail, the right-hander from the U.S., he's really pitching well this year. Pretty much unhittable so far this year, and he's carrying the team at the top of the rotation. So they're in first place at the moment. LG Twins, the defending champions, kind of a sluggish start so far. Got actually swept by the Tigers in 3 games in Gwangju just last night, but they're going to try to win back-to-back titles this year. 한화이글스, with Ryu's return, they've not been really relevant over the past decade or so, but they're hoping to return to the postseason for only the second time since the end of Ryu's first stint back in 2012.
Right, I see, and I'm sure they have the backing of their fans. Meanwhile, Steve, back on football, which team on the football field is receiving maybe a bit more attention for its performance thus far?
You know, the K-League has been around now for 40 years, and nowadays we usually only talk about teams like Ulsan, Jeonbuk, maybe FC Seoul, and surprise teams like Gwangju. But actually, one team that has been the most consistent since the creation of this league has been Pohang. They overachieved last year again by finishing second only behind Ulsan with their manager Kim Gi-dong. And when Kim Gi-dong left for FC Seoul this past winter, everyone just assumed that Pohang would go away. But 6 games into the season this year, they're at the top of the league again. So, some of their standout players like Chung Jae-hee and Yoo Jeeho, 90% of the people you see walking on the streets of any city in Korea probably don't even know who they are. But that doesn't mean they don't have star quality. So if I got you curious about Pohang, I think you should watch these guys because they can really, really play. And I tell you, Pohang, the way they are as a club, they're far from perfect. But if the KFA actually manage to run the Korean national team as well as Pohang ran their football club for over the last 4 decades, there's no way Korea doesn't win the Asian Cup for 64 years like they haven't done in the last 64 years.
Right, I see. So you've brought Pohang to the spotlight for us. Steve, what about some players, maybe rising players that not many of the public know about that are looking to do quite well this season? Who would you shed light on?
One player I want to mention is Chung Ho-yeon, who plays for Gwangju FC. He actually just started to rise to stardom somewhat. He was selected to play for the national team for the first time in his career last month in March. And he's a tidy midfielder, definitely has the technical capacity to maybe one day play in Europe, may even be soon. So, yeah, if I have to pick one player to watch in the K-League this season, it will be Chung Ho-yeon at Gwangju FC, I mean.
Right, I see. Moving forward, Chio, what has been the public response here in Korea to paid streaming of KBO games thus far?
Right, so starting this year, the online streaming has moved behind the paywall. So the fans, if they wanted to watch, I guess, high quality live KBO games, they would have to pay up certain fees. But so far, it's not so much the amount of money. It's not that much in the grand scheme of things, but it's the level of a production in some cases, especially during some of the preseason games and some early regular season games. Some of the games, I think one of the games got cut off while it was a tie game in the bottom of the 9th inning, which is, pretty crucial if you're a baseball fan. So there have been some, minor, I guess, I would say incidents here and there. And, I guess KBO fans, also the K-League fans here are really spoiled as far as getting free, uninterrupted streaming online. They're just a few clicks away, whether you're on a laptop or computer or mobile devices. Used to be just a few clicks away from watching live games anywhere, and also watching games on demand whenever you wanted to if you missed the live action. But that has been taken away, at least in the KBO. So I think it's going to take a bit of a getting used to for fans, not having the kind of easier option. But ultimately the amount of money is not that much, but just the level of production quality, that's got to improve a little bit, I think, going forward.
Right, I see. Steve, do you believe live sports broadcasting will perhaps make a greater transition into streaming platforms?
I do, but I think it'll inevitably be more of an intended approach rather than a natural occurrence, to be honest with you. Because, I mean, what else are you going to do if you're a professional sports league in Korea? Professional sports leagues all over the world are competing to get on the competitive platforms these days. And Korea's TV market for sports is obviously still extremely limited, both in terms of airtime and also economic resources. So to me, it only makes sense that they continue to explore new markets to try to migrate to new promising platforms. Because let's be honest, I'm not sure about the KBO, but the K-League has really, really, really had some rough history on major TV networks in Korea. There were times when reruns of shows like 동물왕국 had higher ratings than live K-League games. And I mean, that's just bad. So if you're the K-League, you better be migrating to these new platforms to attract younger generation because, these young people, before you even know it, they could start consuming football through the traditional media and they might start thinking that football is an old-fashioned sport.
It sounds quite grim. And staying with that, Steve, I understand this might be a tough question, but it seems like you believe K-League should come up perhaps with a new strategy, a fresh one, to better lure young viewers, as you mentioned. Is there something more you'd like to add with that? To that? Is there a way for the K-League to perhaps encourage a greater fan base here in the country?
Yeah, I think the key thing for me is, like I said, I feel like a lot of the attention right now is on, whether can the K-League continue to sustain their ability to average over 10,000 fans per game. They've done that before. They've done that before for over a decade. I think the question now should be more about what are they going to do with the fans that they're bringing to the stadium? And I can't really come up with a strategy here. It's really up to them to come up with that strategy. But, what I can add is, bringing fans to the stadium, it's great. It's great to see that 10,000 fans per game every time. But, that can't be the be-all, end-all of everything.
Right. Jeeho, beyond borders, do tell us a bit about Korean baseball players Kim Ha-sung and Lee Jung-hoo in Major League Baseball.
Sure. Well, Kim Ha-sung and Lee Jung-hoo, they're former teammates in the KBO with the Kiwoom Heroes, good friends. And they're now playing for National League West division rivals. Kim Ha-sung has been with the San Diego Padres this is his fourth season for them, with them. And Lee Jung-hoo signed with the San Francisco Giants in December to make the move to MLB. As division rivals, their teams are scheduled to play each other 13 times. They've already faced each other 7 times in the first couple of weeks of the new season. So they've now played each other in San Diego once and the San Francisco once. And both players have had some moments. Lee Jung-hoo getting the first hit in his first game and homer during I think it was the second and third game. And Kim Ha-sung getting his first homer out of the way also during the series against the Giants. But also, there's some ups and downs, as is usually the case over the course of a baseball season. Kim Ha-sung already has 3 errors this year. To put that in perspective, last year he had 7 errors all of last season, and he won a Gold Glove at the utility position, becoming the first Asian infielder to win a Gold Glove in the majors. Bit of a rough going defensively for Kim, but he's showing some speed. He's got 4 steals to lead his team so far. He's rounding the form. Lee Jung-hoo looks like he has hit the ground running a little bit. He hasn't really needed that much of an adjustment period. He's swinging the bat well, and he's got the skill set that I think translates well from the KBO to MLB. He's got a great plate discipline, and he's got a really good. He's got a great patience at the plate, and when he swings, he doesn't miss much. He's got a great control of the strike zone, as people say in baseball. When he swings, it's usually a strike, and when he does swing, he usually makes contact. And he's running some tough outs with the balls going right at some of the fielders. But luck is gonna turn around for him, I think, going forward in the season.
Right. Steve, like you mentioned earlier, many pundits, they credit football fans for keeping interest in the sport alive, despite the various challenges which you touched upon earlier as well. What more then can be done, perhaps, to live up to their dedication, the sports fans, of course, their dedication to the sport, and perhaps to live up to their expectations as well?
Yeah, I think the question again will come down to whether the K-League can leverage this surge in popularity and how they're going to do that. Are they just going to be happy to see more people come to games for the time being, or will they maximize this opportunity and cement football's place in Korea's popular culture? For example, can they make this an attractive enough league where 3 to 4 years from now, Son Heung-min will want to come join the league and retire in front of his own people after a 20-year, successful career in Europe? We have Jeeho here talking about Ryu Hyun-jin returning to Korea after more than 10 years in the major leagues. And I actually covered Ryu Hyun-jin on the ground here in the States when he pitched for the Dodgers. And to see him back in Korea now, being welcomed by his fans, it's nice to see. The K-League needs to start thinking about these things already, too. And I think if Ryu Hyun-jin can come back to Korea after a decade and retire in front of his biggest fans, why shouldn't the K-League create the same platform for Son Heung-min? But on a positive note, I will say that I honestly think that the best part about the recent surge in popularity for the K-League is that the fan base for the K-League, local football in Korea, is successfully becoming a big enough community of consumers from Korea's wider football fan base, which obviously includes the national team fans and the European football followers. Until recently, one of the main reasons behind the K-League's popularity fluctuating so heavily across the last 4 decades has actually been because of the fact that even the popularity of local football depended heavily on the popularity of the national team, meaning the national team had to be at the center of people's attention for the K-League to reap benefits of football being a relevant topic in Korea. But when you look at the situation that has transpired in Korean football over the last year and a half, the national team has actually been heavily criticized under a poor leadership. But the K-League is showing that they can be viable and still create a positive vibe around football in Korea without having to rely on success of the national team. So that I look at under a very positive light.
I see. And one final question to you, Steve. You spoke about Ulsan taking the title last season. What are their prospects this season?
They're looking pretty good again. I mean, they're not at the top of the league, but it's still early in the season. They were at the risk of losing their manager to the national team, but that didn't happen. Their fans stepped up and protected their manager, which was very dramatic. But good for them. I think they're on course to repeat or win 3 titles in a row this season. But still a lot of games left to be played, and we're just going to have to wait and see.
Right, we do then. May the best team win. All right, Steve, thank you so much for your insights today. And Jeeho, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you.
Right, well, for those of you who have yet to make weekend plans for this month and beyond, a trip to the nation's sports stadiums for either baseball or football may be a fun option. Have a great weekend.